Farming is a very complicated and necessary part of the modern world. Farmers all around the globe are constantly trying to make sure everything is working and to be able to produce the crops that they need. This process is different from country to country, and they all have different things to deal with. Today, we will discuss the difference of farming in different countries around the world. Ghana. First up, we have Ghana, who are known for their cocoa plants. These plantations are usually owned by the people who live in Ghana, unlike other countries. These cocoa plants are farmed in a slightly different way to other places that farm cocoa. They still grow them in the same way and wait until they are ripe for the picking. In Ghana, they take these down by hand and crack them all themselves. They then lay them out in the forest to dry and ferment just like you should. They do this all by hand and have no machines to help them out or any outside interference on their work. This is a more traditional way of farming and one you don't see too often anymore due to the rise of farming technologies. Italy. Italy also uses a traditional way to create most of their well-known product, wine. Wine can be farmed in many ways, and some places in Italy do it differently depending on who owns the vineyard. Some places use machinery to beat down the grapes into the wine, while others use conveyor belts to move everything along very quickly, and this makes the whole thing much more efficient. Other places in Italy do it the more traditional way. They do the majority of the process by hand or by using certain tools. Instead of a machine beating down the grapes, they do it themselves with rubber tools. This is what the machine does, but instead it does it with human power and from human hands. This is one reason why Italy's wine is seen as better. It's usually done the more traditional way, and more people like it that way. China. China uses a more traditional way of farming, whilst also using things like pesticides on their crops. Rice farming is easily one of the biggest exports of China and something they are very well known for. Rice farming in China can be very labor intensive and causes a lot of strain on its workers. They have the highest rice yields in all of Asia. Their cultivation is very dependent on the variety of their cropping and planting methods, and also their use of fertilizer and pesticides. Fertilizer and pesticides may make farming easier, but can also damage the overall outcome of the crop. The majority of the time, this isn't an issue, but sometimes we see these affect the crops in a very bad way. United States of America. Wheat is the main farming product in all of America. It's that important to the country because almost every state in America grows some sort of wheat. This is because the land of America is just perfect for a crop like wheat to grow at its best. The largest amounts of wheat produced every year is in Kansas, as it has some of the biggest plots of wheat fields in the entirety of America. The biggest thing about growing crops in America is the soil. Their soil is very specific, so the time of year really matters for wheat. Some grow theirs in the winter months and some in the summer months. It all depends on when the soil is ready for planting. They use massive machines to plant and harvest the wheat as they need to farm that much of it. It's not really something they could do by hand, and also something they wouldn't even want to do in the first place. America is all about optimization, and that is the most optimum way of farming wheat. Brazil. Brazil has some interesting ways of farming, and their most important one isn't even a crop. Brazil is well known for its cattle ranching and farms. These are vast farms that their cattle live on. They are obviously used for milk and meat. The difference between other countries and Brazil is that Brazil takes a very different approach to the whole thing. When you see images of a Brazilian cattle ranch, it looks more like a cowboy movie than anything else. They ride horses and actually herd the cattle themselves. These cattle live on huge plots of land, so they live a really great life. Some ranchers even are known for being really bad to these animals, but some are really great to them. It all depends on the area and who owns them, of course. This way of farming is very different, but actually pretty interesting to see. United Kingdom. The UK is a mixed bag when it comes to farming crops. They have many important crops that they produce and farm: potatoes, strawberries, and much more. The vast majority of these are all done by hand with a little help from some machinery like tractors and other machines. They mainly plant things by hand or machine, and then depending on the crop, they pick them by hand or use a machine to cover ground easier. Things like strawberries are usually picked by hand, where things like potatoes are picked by a machine, and sometimes by hand. The UK is a massive farming country and has so many exports and imports to do with farming. Some of its practices are amazing and really show other countries how to get farming right. Ecuador. Ecuador is pretty similar to Ghana in the way that they harvest cocoa plants, but they do have some major differences. Ecuador has one of the biggest cocoa plantations in the world and is where most of the major chocolate companies from around the globe get their cocoa from. Companies like Cadbury and Mars all get their cocoa from Ecuador. The main difference with Ecuador farming from Ghana farming is that they do use some more technical aspects of the farming world to make things run easier in the long run. Instead of just harvesting the plants and sorting sorting them all by hand, Ecuador has more facilities on these farms to make life easier for the workers. Cocoa is very fragile, so sorting them by hand is best. But machines are obviously used when needed. They still sort them in the same way, but do so in the warehouses and not in the middle of the plantation. They are just more sophisticated with their cocoa farming. Nigeria. Yams are one of the biggest sources of income across all of Nigeria. A vast amount of the country's huge population depends on yams for their income to live. These yams are different from the American ones and are worth much more than you would think. These things are like gold in Nigeria. Yams are only really planted in sandy soil, which is why a place like Nigeria is best for them to grow optimally. Some bad yams are even replanted as they can make the soil better for the next yield of yams. This is a great way that they differ from other countries. They reuse more than most, and it really pays off for them in the long run. South America. Cassava is an amazing crop that only really comes from places like Africa and South America. The main farming difference with these ones are that they are used and depended on by low-income areas in South America. These aren't just something that companies want and sell for profit. They are literally these people's livelihoods. They are farmed like most other crops and are even drought resistant. The main reason these differ is that they are able to grow in pretty much any condition. They are a lifesaver for those in low-income areas, and they are just amazing all year round. And finally, we have Japan. Our last one isn't around a specific crop. Japan is known for a farming style that goes by the name Shizen no-ho. This was created by Masanobu Fukuoka. The technique is where you give up practices like tilling, weeding, pruning, and the use of some fertilizers and pesticides. This means that you do nothing to the crops and just let them grow. It's a do-nothing technique. This is a really interesting version of farming, as nowadays, everything has some sort of addition. We are always adding things to crops or messing with them. This farming technique just lets them grow as they were meant to be. How interesting. And that is the end of the video. It's cool to see that there are so many different variations of farming techniques and so many completely different ones from around the world. On paper, farming might seem simple and easy, but there are so many factors in play and so many factors to mess around with. We have some countries who mess with them a lot and some like Japan who sometimes do nothing at all. Hopefully you enjoyed this video. If you did, let us know down in the comments down below. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe to our channel. Thanks for watching.